Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and we're here with another episode of Around the World in Books, this time Eastern Europe edition. I'm really pumped about this episode. There are a lot of these books that I'm really excited for. But first thing I thought I'd mention is, I've got my laptop with my spreadsheet, but first thing that I thought I'd mention is I think I only have one Eastern Europe book that I've already read. So I thought I'd just mention that. My pick for Hungry is one I've already read. It's The Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orczy. Not sure how to say that. I forgot to look that one up beforehand. I do really like The Scarlet Pimpernel. I think it's fun. The musical, not it. It does not match at all. Really, like I've been listening to the music trying to figure out for the life of me where it lines up with the book. My guesses were so off because the plot is so different in the musical, but I do like The Scarlet Pimpernel. I've read that one a couple times. We read it once as a family when I was a kid, and then I've read it once by myself as an adult. Definitely would reread that one again sometime, but I'm not going to for this video just because the books that I have are going to be quite lengthy anyways. That was my pick for Hungry. Again, have already read it. Let's dive into the books that I am going to be reading for this video. Just as a reminder, if you haven't watched my other videos in this series yet, I am trying to read a book by an author from every country around the world. I've broken it up into regions just to try and keep myself organized, and I'm just reading a few, however many make sense for a video at a time. So there are going to be more Eastern European videos for sure. For right now, I've just picked 4 for this video. The first book that I'm reading for this week's video is The Metamorphosis and Other Stories by Franz Kafka. This one is obviously a classic. Also, I really love these editions that they've been doing, so I'm hoping I like his writing because there are a lot of other editions of this that would be fun. But obviously The Metamorphosis is very famous, but I'm very interested to see what other ones are bound up in this short story collection. It's always intriguing to me to see what other things they decide to put in with a super famous work by an author, especially where this is kind of like the main one I feel like people know from this author. So it's also very interesting to see where they place the main story within the whole collection. My specific edition is translated by Willa and Edwin Muir. So I think that's how you say that, but it's got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 short stories in the collection, so I'm probably going to just read this one as we go. I've already read the first one. It was very, very short, and honestly I'm not sure why we felt the need to include that, but I will give you more thoughts on this once I've read a few more of the stories. But that is our first book. This is for Czech Republic. And then I have my pick for Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm gonna say this wrong. Herzegovina? I don't think I'm saying that right still, but this is The Judgment of Richard Richter by Igor Stix. I tried to find a pronunciation guide on how to say that author's name, but I couldn't find one. And this one is translated by Ellen Elias Bursuck. I love it when it's on the cover and I don't have to go digging for it. But this one is basically, you're following this guy who is an author, which is going to be interesting. Books about authors are always fascinating. And he's reading through some notebooks of his mom's, and he finds a notebook with some secret in it. You don't know what it is based off the back of the book, but he decides to go on a hunt to figure out this secret. And that's kind of as much as I know about this one. I think it's more lit fic. We'll see, maybe a little bit mystery, but this one I think will be very interesting. And then we have my pick for Albania. This is The General of the Dead Army by Ismail Kadare. And it is translated by Derek Coltman. So this one, it follows basically a general, an Italian general several years after World War II goes back to Albania to recover the remains of as many of the soldiers that died there as he can. And so you're following kind of the tensions between him and the locals as he goes back and tries to recover the bodies of soldiers who died in action. Basically just how he's treated and stuff like that. So I think this will be an interesting take on like a war book where you're going after the war, and it's like, especially World War II. We have so many World War II books, but I don't feel like you see a lot that are like 20 years later, kind of the fallout after the fact of relations between the two countries. So this one will be very fascinating. And then the last book that I'm reading for this video is the one that I'm most excited about. This is my pick for Armenia, and this is The Grey House by Mariam Petrosan. And this one is translated by Yuri Makasov, maybe? Makasov? I don't know. Someone can correct me down below. Google's not being very helpful, but again, this is my pick for Armenia. This one is about, basically, it's like the sentient house, and you have all of these different, maybe orphans. They're all, yeah, physically disabled students live in the house. And you're starting to basically see, they're getting a lot of pressure from outside of, like, people, government, stuff like that outside, to try and basically get rid of their house and their order. And so I don't know a ton more than that, but it sounds fun. I love the idea of this house being sentient, and having maybe magical powers. It is definitely a chunky book, but I'm very excited for this one. So I'm gonna save this one for last. I'm starting with The Metamorphosis. I'll probably read another short story or two, and then I will pick up one of these two. I haven't decided which one I want to start with yet, but that is the 4 books that I'll be reading in this video. I'm very excited for these. If you have recommendations for books by authors from some of the other Eastern European countries, please let me know. There are definitely a lot of Eastern European countries, and a lot of them I have not found options for yet. So if you have any suggestions, please leave them down below. But I'm gonna go and get reading, and I will check back in with you when I have some updates on these books, hopefully with better lighting. It is super rainy today, so this was kind of the best lighting we were gonna get. But thank you for being here, and I will go and start reading. It's time for a little bit of a reading update for this vlog. I've made some progress in both of these books. I can't really remember if the only thing I filmed is the intro. I think that's it. First, on this collection of short stories, I am officially to The Metamorphosis, like that actual short story in the book. I'm like 10 pages into it, maybe. It's interesting. Not sure how I'm feeling about it. There was a whole short story before this that was like, I think it was called Meditations, and it really felt like it was just like his random thoughts on a variety of different things. Like something would be called Absent-Minded Window Gazing, and then it was just like his thoughts about doing that. Or like The Way Home, and then he's just like talking about his way home or something like that. So I'm not sure if those are supposed to be like fictional or if they're supposed to be just like real life musings. Unsure. I feel like I needed a little more background on those ones, but it's going okay. I'm definitely slowly working my way through it, but I'm not like obsessed with it. The General of the Dead Army I've made more progress on. I think I'm nearing halfway. I'm currently 126 pages into it, so making some progress. You're very much so just kind of following him as he goes and finds the different bodies. There's like little snippets of different soldiers, like journals, or I can't tell if they're supposed to be like just people's stories that they told him, things like that. So you're getting some of it from the point of view of the party of people that is going and digging up the bodies, and then you're getting it also just like little snippets from soldier point of views, which is really interesting. Overall, it's good. I'm not like obsessed with it. It's not particularly fast to read, but I don't mind the writing. So it's kind of hard to explain how I feel about this. We'll see how I feel at the end of it. It keeps mentioning this one character over and over and over again, and I feel like there's going to be some, like it's almost setting it up for there to be some kind of like reveal or something, but it's not really pitched as a mystery book, so I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something more with that character that they keep mentioning over and over and over. So I'll be interested to see. If that doesn't actually lead to anything, then I feel like I'll be a little disappointed, honestly. So I'm hoping it does. So we'll see how I feel about the ending on this one. I feel like that could make a big difference. I'm interested to see how you wrap up a book like this, where there's not really like a plot. So it's always interesting to see what they do with that. But I'm about halfway through it, so I'll probably update you again when I finish this one, and then I'll just let you know however much progress I've made in this one. But so far, going well. I'm not making it through these books as fast as I would love to, but that's mostly because I've been busy with other things in like my personal life. So it's not really the book's fault that I'm going slow. Okay guys, time for an update. I have finished The General of the Dead Army, and I'm trying to think what my final thoughts are on this book. I don't know if I have a rating for it yet. It's one of those books that like, I don't have anything that I didn't love about it. It just, I wasn't like obsessed. I think my biggest complaint with this book is you feel so detached from the characters. They don't even get names. Like your main characters that you're following are just called the General and the Priest, the whole book. And so it just feels like we never really connect with them. Like you're in the General's head the entire story and you never even get a name for him. Like I just feel like I don't know him as a character at all. So I feel like that was interesting. I feel like you either have to have a good plot or you have to have really likable, or not even likable, like you have to have really interesting characters or a really interesting plot. And this book didn't really have either. Like there's a plot where they're going around and finding all these soldiers, but it really is more just like a collection of thoughts. It feels almost like a, not a journal, but like sort of, where it's just like you kind of jump around and you see these different little like scenes, little vignettes. Like you're just, there's not really like a coherent, cohesive plot. I'm not entirely sure what I was supposed to take away from this book. The other thing that's really fascinating, specifically from the lens of why I read this book, because obviously like I picked this book because I was trying to pick an author from Albania. And so reading a book by an Albanian author, but it's written from the perspective of the Italian general. So you're not really getting like the Albanian's perspective from it. You just get that as like what the priest and the general are noticing as they go around. And there's definitely like a lot of talk of the Albanians don't really like them and don't really want them there, obviously, because they like were fighting each other in the war 20 years earlier. So it's like some talk about that, but I'm not really sure like what my takeaway was supposed to be from this book. But all that being said, like it was a good read. It was still interesting, but it's not like a favorite book. I don't know that I'd be like telling you need to rush out and get this book, but it's an interesting one. If you find the concept interesting, then I would say go for it, but it's not something, if you don't find that interesting, then there's no need to feel like you're missing something, you know, like you're not missing out on anything by not reading this book. So that's my thoughts on The General of the Dead Army. The other thing is, I don't know if it's just my copy or what, but there were lots of typos, I guess, in here where like spaces would be missing, or like the first letter of a word, or things like that. So there was a few misprints in my copy of the book, but I do think that this is a subject or a topic that I would love to see other books about, because it's such an interesting thing that we don't talk about all that often. But I've said interesting so many times, I'm not coming up with a better word, but I don't know that this book really hit the spot for me of what I wanted to see with this concept. So that's The General of the Dead Army. Overall, it was really good, but it wasn't like one I'm probably going to think a ton about. In addition to that, I have read a little bit more in this one. I have finished the actual Metamorphosis short story. So I just finished this. That's like where I'm at right now. I think I expected a little bit more from that short story for it being like the one that has gotten as famous as it has. I don't know, I feel like when it's a short story that has made itself as like a classic, right? I just expect a certain amount of there being like a interesting moral to the story, or that there's like some deeper concept, and I'm not really sure what it was supposed to be with the Metamorphosis. This might be spoilers, so I guess skip ahead like a minute if you're trying to avoid all spoilers, but this is like a classic short story, so I don't know, but potential like spoilers incoming. He just dies at the end, and then like the whole moral of the story is just like, oh, we didn't need him in our lives were better off without him, and now look at us being able to flourish. Like what? Why is that the takeaway? I don't understand why we needed a short story that had like that as the takeaway at the end. And then like they don't even bother to like bury him. They just like have the housekeeper dispose of the body. Like what on earth? Not sure how I feel about the key end takeaway of this short story. There are still quite a few. Like I'm not even quite halfway through this collection yet, so I'm curious to see if there's going to be a different one in this book that I enjoy more, because I do feel like sometimes in short story collections the one that it's like named after isn't always my favorite. Excited to continue with this, but that also means that we are on to a new book while I continue working through that short story. So let me pull it off the shelf. I'm going to go with Judgment of Richard Richter. This one is another one that I feel like I don't really understand what the plot of it is. So I'm probably gonna get a little bit of the ways into it, and then I will let you know what I'm actually think the plot is, because I have no idea just based off the back. So we're gonna dive into this book, and I will let you know when I've read enough of this that I can explain what it's about. I am about halfway through The Judgment of Richard Richter, and if you can tell by the fact that I've been annotating, I'm actually thoroughly enjoying this book. I was a little uncertain about it because, again, the back just did not explain very well what it was about, and so I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but it's been quite good so far. The writing style reminds me a lot of, spacing her name, Margaret Atwood. I've read one of her books. I read The Blind Assassin, and I didn't love that book, but I did really like her writing style. So this one has been really good. It reminds me a lot of that writing style, just in the way that he like puts together sentences and describes things. A writing style that I really love. Basically, to try and explain the premise of this book a little bit better, you're following Richard Richter, and he is an author who's kind of going through a rough patch. He's like in his 50s. He just split, I can't tell if he actually divorced, but split from his wife. He moves back home into his childhood home, and I don't feel like this is a spoiler because it happened so early on, but he decides to remodel his childhood room, and he finds this notebook that contains some writings from his mom, who died shortly after he was born. He never knew her. He was raised by his aunt. It reveals some information about him. I won't say what, but he gets this big revelation that is kind of earth-shattering, and you're following through as he deals with that. Kind of in part of dealing with that, he gets himself assigned to go and be a reporter in Bosnia, which is currently under siege, the city that he goes to, and he's basically got signed up to be a war reporter. And so he goes to the city, and you're following him as he kind of grapples with this revelation that he found out and tries to make new friends as he's living in this super war-torn city. And it's just, you're kind of following as he does this. And it's set up as if he's like back home now writing about his experiences. And I will say, look up the trigger warnings before you go into this book. There is a lot of talk about suicide. He basically mentioned several times as the like narrator author that he is writing this as kind of like one last here's my story before he decides to kill himself. So full trigger warnings. There's a lot of mention about suicide, and he has family members and things like that, so be prepared before you go into this. But it's a very interesting look at the war, at how people survive living in a place that is just constantly getting bombed, and there's snipers everywhere, and they're like, it's inescapable, but they're still like going about their daily lives. And so that's what he chooses to report on, is all of these ways that people are just continuing to live their life while in the middle of a war. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Again, there's not so much of a plot. I'm not really sure where we're going with this. I'm interested to see if this really continues with the whole I'm planning to end my life, or if we like get a twist around and it somehow becomes hopeful. I'm not sure where you're like, the author's at this point and he's writing how he got to it. So I'm not sure where we're gonna go with this or how it's gonna end, but I'm about halfway through. I will update you when I finish this book. I don't really have any updates on the Metamorphosis collection yet. I really haven't read much of that. I've just been reading this book. So I'll update you. Hopefully I'll have read a little bit more of my short stories by the time I finish this book, but we'll talk when I'm done with that, and then we'll start our final book for the video. All right, I have a big update for this video. I have finished The Judgment of Richard Richter. This was a very interesting book. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it like 4 stars. Again, I really enjoyed the writing. I did stop tabbing at about the point that I last talked to you because the plot picked up, but I feel like there was a lot less like good quotes, but the plot was moving a lot faster. So it's definitely one of those books that teases for so much of the book, like something big happened, and you don't really know what until you get to the very last bit, and then the last bit goes really fast as you finally start to get answers. I think my favorite thing about this book is he understood the assignment on wrapping everything up. The epilogue is one of the most satisfying epilogues I've ever read, not necessarily because I liked how it ended, but he just made sure to wrap up every single little question that you had lingering from the story, and so that was very satisfying. I hate when books leave open endings, so this was exactly how I want epilogues to be. Like, it really just tied everything up in a neat little bow. It's definitely not like a happy ending necessarily. It's very real world feeling, but it was a very satisfying ending because it did tie up every single little loose end. So that was a big plus. There are definitely some weird topics in this, and I'm not sure how I feel about those. That's kind of the main thing bringing it down. It's kind of a spoiler to tell you what the weird things are, but just know there's some like odd topics that could feel a little weird. They're handled in a way that's not like so bad, but like still a little uncomfy, but you're not really supposed to be comfortable with it. It's like one of those books where it feels like it's intentionally bringing up controversial topics to like have a discussion about them. So I don't know, it's not so much brought up in a way that it's like trying to romanticize it or make it seem okay. It's very much so like trying to start conversations about it and depict like very real world scenarios that could happen. Definitely look up trigger warnings though, like for sure. There are a lot of conversations about suicide in this book, so please proceed with caution. But overall I did really enjoy it. I would definitely read another book by this author. I really liked his writing. I don't even know if he has other books. Where's my phone? It does look like there are several other books. Not all of them look like they have English translations, but some of them do. So I don't know, would definitely be interested to read other books by this author. One of my better ones that I've read in this challenge, honestly. I don't know if I just like blanket recommend it to everybody. Definitely more of an adult book. There's topics in here that, again, I think they're handled carefully, but you need to go into it with the right mindset. This wouldn't be the one that I'd recommend to younger audiences because I just don't know if they'd have the maturity to like process through it. Like, you'd need someone a little more mature to read this. But that's that one. I'm finished with it. It was good. I am still slowly working my way through this one. I'm not really enjoying this, but I'm going to try and finish it for the video. So I'm just gonna pick it up and read a couple pages here and there. I'm really just bored with it, and I don't get it. We'll see. Maybe there will be a story in here that I'll like, but so far I'm not enjoying this one very much. But because I finished The Judgment of Richard Richter, I am going to be starting on The Grey House. This one is such a big book, so it's probably going to take me a while to get through this one, but I'm going to start working on this one and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. I'll read both of these at the same time and I will update you when I have some more thoughts. I don't know if it'll quite be halfway through this, but once I'm a significant way into this book, I'll give you an update. Hopefully I'll have also made some progress on this one by then. time for an update. I have made slight progress in this. I honestly can't remember what the last time was that I updated you, but I'm currently at page 243. I think I'm almost done with the final story that's in the main book, and then for some reason there's a bunch of stuff in an appendix, which I don't understand. Like, what is the stuff in the appendix? Is this different from just all the other stuff? Do I read, like, I'm gonna read it just because it feels like it's still just short stories by him, but very confused. If you have any further information, why are there books in the appendix? Why are they not just part of the main book? I'm confused. But the real update is that I am about 184 pages into The Grey House, and I'm enjoying it so far. I think honestly my biggest gripe with this book at the moment is that it is so hard to hold. Like, it is not a floppy book at all, really, and it's just so thick. So it's definitely a little confusing and hard to get into. It kind of reminds me of like Newsies, Maze Runner, like that kind of a setup where you have all of these boys that have been brought into this location that's kind of cut off from the outside of the world, or like they kind of have their own little world going on, and they all go by nicknames, and they all like have their own little society that they've built with all these crazy rules and stuff, and it's funny, but I'm not really sure where we're going with this. We're following two timelines, a present and then a past in the form of interludes. There are overlaps, so it's not like a super far past. There's characters in the present that are like older teenagers now, but in the past like sections, they're like younger kids. So you're following them as kids, and then you're following them as like now the top age group of the household. So that's interesting. I'm waiting to see how they interconnect. I feel like there's going to be something there where they kind of intertwine and you get some kind of big reveal about why things are the way they are in the present based off of the past. So we'll see. I was under the impression that somebody from like outside the house comes and like starts putting pressure on it, but maybe, yeah. But student deaths and mounting pressure from the outsides put the time-defying order of the house in danger. So we've yet to see that part. So I don't know, this is split up into 3 books. So I'm wondering if like book 1 is just the setup so we understand kind of what's happening, and then maybe book 2 or 3 dives into this whole idea of people on the outside. But I am nearing book 2. I'm like that far from book 2, so getting close to that, and then we'll see. I'm interested to see how much of a difference there is between what's going on in book 1 and book 2. Overall, really likable characters. It's very eccentric. Like the rules that all of these boys have like made for their household are just so funny. There's definitely some mysterious things going on with the house. I don't know if I would quite say that it feels like a sentient house at the moment, but there's definitely some weird things going on there, which I'm hoping we get better explanations as we go further. But I am going to read this. I've kind of set today aside to just read as much of this book as I can. I really was hoping to get this video up like tomorrow, but obviously I still have a lot to read. So I've kind of set today aside. I've got like an hour and a half probably until I'm gonna want to eat lunch. So I'm gonna sit down and try and just bust out as much of this book as I can today. So hopefully I can get this video to you guys pretty soon. But that's my update on The Grey House. I'm enjoying it. I'm not like obsessed yet, but it's fun. Hello everybody, I am here with my final update for this video. First things first, I finally sort of finished the Metamorphosis and Other Stories. I had like 1 story left, and then the ones that were in the appendix. I was just so bored that I decided to call it quits. Maybe, most likely I will never go back and finish those, but I give this 2 stars. It's like fine. I do not understand the hype behind this book. especially the metamorphosis itself. Like, the rest of the stories aren't really hyped up, but the metamorphosis is, and I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why people love that one so much and make such a big deal of it. It was just weird. Like, this whole collection was just like so pointless. It just felt like the biggest waste of time to read these stories. So needless to say, I am not a Franz Kafka fan. So that one was disappointing a bit, but I read enough of it that I feel like I can count that as finished. But if you have recommendations of other authors that would check my box for this country, let me know. But not my favorite, but I am done with it and I'm glad to be done. And then the bigger update, I finished The Grey House. This one was definitely a lot to get through. It is a big book, and there are parts of it that move really slow, there are parts of it that move really fast. Overall, this book is very confusing, but it also makes sense. Like, it is a read between the lines type of a book. Lots of things in this story are told very like a fairy tale, and you kind of have to put two and two together and piece things together, and then you kind of get the story. There's not a lot of stuff that's actually full on told just straight out, and part of that is because that's how the kids act. So I don't know if I ever really, I think I did explain kind of what it was about, but there does start to be a lot more magical things going on as you get further into the book. That being said, though, the kids have the superstition that you're not supposed to talk about it straight out, and so they like have what they call fairy tale night, where they get together and they talk about these things that are going on, but they say them in a way that they're like fairy tales, so that you're not like fully saying it. So it's only the people who are in the know that can figure out what they're actually saying. And so as the reader, you never get a better explanation than that. Like, you are also trying to pick up and read between the lines and figure out what exactly is going on and connect the dots, which is fun in a way, but it definitely takes more brain power. Like, this isn't a fantasy book where they're going to explain every single little bit of the magic to you. Like, you kind of just have to make some conclusions on your own and go with it and hope you got it. Overall, I think I'm giving this one like a 4 stars. Like I said, there are parts that are really slow that do kind of drag, but the characters are just so fun. They're so unique. Like, you have some of the quirkiest characters I've ever read in this book. At the start of book 2, you finally get the point of view of an adult, and you don't get his point of view very often, but you do a couple times throughout the book, and I really enjoyed that part. I feel like that made everything make a bit more sense. The adult was willing to speak a little more straightforward than the kids, and so because you're jumping POVs, you're really getting as much information as the characters have to a certain extent, but you're never really in the POV of the people who know the most. So I don't know, very interesting. It's one that I feel like I need to like ruminate on and decide fully what I think about it. It definitely is one that's intended to make you kind of think, and I'm not entirely sure what I was supposed to take out of it. I'm sure something, though. It would be interesting to reread this one. Probably will not be doing that anytime soon, but I do think it'd be interesting to reread it and see if you can put things together faster, or like see other hints and understand, because really for the first little bit it does feel like the kids are just talking complete nonsense. So I'd be interested if, now that I know a lot of the details, if I were to go back and read that, if they would make more sense to me. It would be very interesting to see. But overall good. I don't know that it's one that I'm like, you need to read this book, but if you find it all interesting, and if you're okay to not have everything told to you completely straightforward, this is a very fascinating, fun book. But with that, we're done with my video for Eastern Europe. So again, Grey House, really enjoyed it. Metamorphosis, definitely didn't. Judgment of Richard Richter, I enjoyed the whole book, but the first half was definitely better than the second half for me. And The General of the Dead Army was an okay book. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. So that's my Eastern European authors. Obviously I have more countries that I need to get to. Some of them I've already found authors for, some of them I have not. So if you have any recommendations for other countries, let me know. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.